want to talk to you a little bit about Ray O'Connor and share his stories, because as I was saying before, as we were saying out there, without him, this wouldn't have been possible. So I asked him to share with me his initial impressions when he first walked into the old synagogue. And here's what he said. He said, some years ago, Shimmy Cohen asked me to do some repair work on the AG synagogue. The first time I stepped inside, I was blown away by the extraordinary beauty of the interior. It was like opening a plain jewelry box and finding a magnificent jewel inside. The splendor of the colors, the surprise of the ornate chandeliers and decorations, the discovery of the wonderful sky blue ceiling, and the beauty and warmth of the masterful copperwork made for a stunning experience. Everything radiated joyfulness, and I thought people of any faith would feel uplifted to see this expression of devotion and spiritual heritage. It was truly one of those unexpected moments in life, full of surprise and wonder that I will always treasure. I should also say that it was an unexpected moment in life too, when what I first thought was a 4-week job turned into an 8-month project. Please know how thankful and honored I am to have had a part in preserving this special masterpiece. Best regards, Ray. One fun discovery he made was the luminous effect of the wall sconce uplights. They create an upward wash of light that's especially warm and beautiful, and which creates an unmistakably theatrical effect when viewed in person. This is what the place looked like when he was working there, when he was given the task of dismantling the Ark and the other holy artifacts and figuring out how to prepare them for shipment. So this was, as Ray would describe it, a day at the office. He noticed as he was doing this work, the remarkable craftsmanship. He said, I did some preparatory work today at a Chabad Garage synagogue building and wanted to call your attention to some examples of the beautiful features of the copper ark's ornamentation. In particular, the soldered joints in the copper work are so neat and so nearly imperceptible that they look like little more than a pencil line. Only a very skilled craftsman could accomplish this level of finesse and expertise. I was in the process of loosening one of the light fixtures and noticed a little patch of blue in the wall behind. I removed a small section of wall panel behind the fixture and discovered embossed metal wall tiles. I wonder if Morse Newell may have produced those as well. There are some examples of the tiles back on the table. That's good. Take a look at them. More surprises lay behind the lions, more tiles, but with an entirely different design. And he found that the interior of the Ark, when he first viewed it, was decorated with linen fabric wrapped around foam panels and stapled to simple vertical boards with some evident water damage in the bottom. After the foam and the boards were removed from behind the Ark, there were remnants of yet more tin wall. The chandeliers in particular seem to evoke a wonderful feeling of the late Victorian age. As you'll see, there were 2 types of chandeliers. I think that it's my understanding that the large one on the left came from a bank in Burlington, and that's where what was its origin. And I'm not sure where the smaller ones came from. We have not yet been able to coax the current owner out of any of the chandeliers, but it is high on my list of things that I do not intend to give up on. I'm bound to determine there are multiples of each type, and I'm bound to determine to get us one of each type somehow or other at some point. Here's the embroidered Ark cover within the old synagogue. This beautiful green accented little jewel-like pieces. And here's preparing for the move, what went into preparing for the move. Every component of the Ark, had to be entirely dismantled, and every section had to be individually created for the move. So if you're just to give you a sense of kind of the love and the care that went into this, Ray used a ton of bubble wrap, lots and lots of bubble. Here he is dismantling the Ark, and you can see the crevice into which it fit, and you can see the top piece coming down, and then that's the crate he built specifically to move that particular piece. There were also a number of memorial plaques, 6 or 8, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but they each had to be moved and then individually graded for the move and protected.
Those things weigh a ton.
They weigh a ton.
They're like 150, 200 pounds. I mean,
Yes,
I
you have
was
it.
involved in moving a couple of times.
This is not an
Six of
easy
us
job.
are how the hell are we gonna do this?
This is not an easy job, and they are all now in storage, just so you know, they're safe and sound, but yeah, it's a huge amount of work. And then this was the, excuse me, this was the bima and the reading table in the old synagogue, and because it was an Orthodox shul, they had that in the middle of the space, it wasn't up with the ark. So everybody was part of, could kind of gather around that and have that experience. It's very different than the kind of experience that certainly that I grew up with, in conservative synagogues. And so we have also all of the railings of the bima and the reading table in storage. We brought over 4 of the pews, the old wooden pews, to be used down the road, and we'll discuss what's down the road in a minute. And then this is all this material arriving here in this very room. And what Ray said was, this work is complex, and there are many parts and pieces that will be moved to their new home. Therefore, it would be ideal to have about half of the conference room, we call this the conference room.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah, all right, okay. I'll go out that way, please, go ahead.
Available for work if possible, to allow for the number and bulk of the items to be installed. As it happens, this whole room was filled with stuff, and we had to move a considerable number of pieces into storage just to give Ray room to work. I mean, literally, by the time he brought over everything he had to bring over, this space was, you could barely move. So that was a lot of work. Hi, welcome.
Sorry, I didn't.
No worries. We were just talking about Ray O'Connor, who is the master craftsman, is the master craftsman. Without him, this would never have been able to really. This is the drawing that he made, trying to envision what a temporary installation of the ark would look like in this space, which is considerably smaller than the space that it occupied in the old synagogue. So he talks about taking off the bottom 2-foot high pedestals, which you'll be able to see more clearly right there, from the original installation, and placing them alongside the columns allows the majority of the ark to fit in this room, but it also significantly alters the tablature of the base column pediment classical design. In particular, the height of the central Torah tablet is now significantly lowered. So what you're going to be seeing is a temporary installation, and it is not the same dimensions as the original. The original copper ark dimensions in round numbers was approximately 13 feet high from the finished floor of the raised altar area to the topmost eagle ornament, and approximately 8 feet wide at the widest point, side to side from the outermost edges of the bottom copper pedestals, baseboard trim edges. So this shows you, he made a plywood mock-up so that we could have a sense of what it would look like in this space, showing the width and the depth and how everything was going to lay out. And there's the mock-up with the light fixtures in front of it. They were moved to the side so that it would begin to be on account of the space constraints. And then before he could actually begin to reassemble the ark, he needed to add more structural components. So he required a steel wall, a steel 2x4 wall against the windows in order to be able to support this structure. And you can see in this picture the steel wall that he built there. Ray told me that as a fellow craftsman, he knows that it was no accident that Wool chose to make the ark out of copper. Copper, unlike other materials, can last for hundreds and even thousands of years. Wool built this ark in memory of his wife, and he built it to last. So now it's up to us to care for this unique and priceless legacy. This is what it looked like in the old synagogue. And this is a brief picture of what we're hoping to raise money to accomplish here. Beyond the ark itself, its temporary installation, which you'll see in just a minute, what we'd really like to do is be able to push this wall out, raise the roof so that we could get to 75 or 80% of the original dimensions and recreate the old sanctuary so that ourselves and future generations can have the experience of sitting in the original pews with the bima there, with the Torah reading platform there, with the ark there, with the Star of David. You see the window in the background recreated, the stained glass Star of David, so that we really can provide a full immersion experience of what it was like to be in that space. So.
All right, let's
I think
get the
the
TV
moment
out of the
has
way.
come.
Let's move this. Run, pick up the computer. We'll separate that. Get this out of the way. Sarah, Lisa, Pat, Michael, thank you. We told the story, I shared that another time, we told the story of, Michael Wool's great grandfather Morris, who built this, and what a character he was on a scale very much like Benzion Black. He was a one of a kind character, Michael. I talked to Michael, described him as an incredibly large fellow. He owned AC Hathorn Roofing Company, worked until his death. And descriptions of him being larger than life and being a fighter and being quite a remarkable man. So in many respects, he's a one of a kinder like Benzion Black.
What hadn't been with that is that he also built evaporators
Yes.
for most of the maple industry in Vermont.
Yeah, he was really quite astounding, I mean, in terms of his capacity. And I think that really underscores, I mean, the theme of this particular piece and the reason why this piece matters so much. We said that the original red brick synagogue was built in 1887. It was wood. It was built on a foundation that had been a stone cutting business on Archibald Street.
So it was wood initially?
It was wood initially in 1887. It would have looked like the Chayotim Synagogue. It was roughly half the size. In 1903, the building that we see now from the front, which is the bricked frontist part, that was added in 1903. And then in 1928, the building was extended by about 20 feet. It was pushed back, and it was that extension in 1928 that essentially created a much larger space with which to accommodate this. So it was a pretty logical sequence through which, in Chayotim, we know that that was painted in 1910 when they really wanted to refresh their synagogue. In 1928 had become much, much larger, much more dramatic, and they wanted something to reflect that. And this was it.
Are we ready?
Yes, you ready?
Just in time.
So again, the storyline is this. Ray O'Connor said it was going to take him 4 weeks. He had to extract from the wall itself. He had to take the ark out of the wall of the old synagogue,
One piece at a time.
brought it here ever so carefully, and then was going to reinstall it here. He projected it was going to take him 4 weeks. And he paid himself accordingly. It took him 8 months, and he won't take anything else.
So it's somewhere in this building?
The ark?
Yeah.
It's right here.
Oh, I thought you were saying this was gonna be a replica.
No, this is the actual arc, but it's been scaled down.
Gotcha.
So
So
what,
the original was 13 feet high and about 8 feet wide. You'll see that this is not 13 feet high because we don't have 13 feet to work with.
Not yet.
And we'll talk about that.
but we're gonna get there. All right, you ready?
Right,
Ready.
wow.
And let's pay homage to it in its
Full glory. And feel free to come up. Come up and take a closer look.
On June 6th, we're gonna have the public opening, which we're sponsoring, and we're bringing Sam back, Sam Gruber, and Sam was instrumental, as I mentioned to everyone here. Sam was the fellow who said that lost mural is one of a kind. It's actually one of two, but the reality is that Sam knew that it was extraordinarily special. While he was here in 2015, he went to the old synagogue and he saw this, and he said, guys, this is also one of a kind. It's one of a kind in part for any number of different reasons. One is copper. It's an extraordinarily rare element that gets used in synagogue arcs. The second is that the design is classical. I mean, it's classic. The design basically consists of columns and pediment, which is not a traditional Jewish design. But what's critical here is what he did. And when we were watching Ray, is the lions are the identical lions to Benzion Black's lions. The 10 Commandments are the same. The light at the top, the 10 Commandments, of course, have the crown of Torah, just as the crown of Torah, operates in Benzion Black's, where the light in the crown was intended to be the Ner Tamid, the eternal light. And that one stayed on all the time. The 7 lights were designed to reflect the 7 days of the week. The other smaller lights, and we'll have to work on this one, the smaller lights that are contained within the acorns, and the acorns traditionally are used as a sign. They're used often in Jewish art to signify fertility, strength. That was one of the themes that he developed on his own. Obviously, the priestly blessing was something that you don't see very, very often, along with the, along with the elements on the
Is this
side.
manufactured on site or somebody's manufactured?
Yeah. So Ray's description, I mean, you captured it, Sean, is when we asked Ray to come and share with us. Ray ended up telling us the story because he's too humble and modest. He didn't want to show up and be recognized for what he had accomplished. Ray said that when you look at this, the seams are so extraordinary. I mean, the quality of the work is absolutely exceptional. And he said this was designed to last, I mean, in terms both in material and workmanship for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so this was really intended to be, and is, something of really quite extraordinary stature. You wanna,
I was just gonna say that 2 of the lights, I'm not sure if it's these 2 or those 2. But 2 of them were, every single light piece was separately wired. And one of the ways that Ray established the date that this was actually installed was by the nature of the electrical wiring. Which was really interesting. But it also turns out that 2 of these lights, and again, Ray would know, and I don't know for sure if it's the top acorns or the bottom 2, were only meant to be lit once a year on Fanny's yard site. So that was a specific intention.
What do the hands mean?
the hands of the priestly blessing. So you remember when Spock goes and
Yeah,
does his
I was
thing?
gonna say,
He stole that from, that's the traditional Orthodox priestly blessing.
So
that
that-
they done by the high
so
priest.
that came from somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Spock-
Oh, yeah, no.
Everything
If-
comes
if
from
you- if
somewhere.
you want to have fun, go online, type in Leonard Nimoy Yiddish Book Center. They interview him,
Oh,
and he's describing how much of his youth in, I think he was born and raised in Newton. And he spoke Yiddish.
There's a whole documentary.
Yeah.
That I saw.
Yeah, but he, the priestly blessing is was very much a part of that.
Was it moved intact like the mural or just in
No,
pieces?
that's-
You know,
Right,
and a
it's back.
tremendous number of pieces.
Just dismembered and brought.
Totally dismembered and each piece was crated individually.
And we have pictures, I think we'll tell the story the same way we told the story as a mural, it was just watching, we asked Ray each time he did something to take pictures and to share his story with us, and so watching him. And again, I mean, it was just, for him, it was an experience of tremendous
You said it's
discovery.
much taller.
Yeah,
It was
So-
13 feet tall.
yeah,
So
so
what we're
saying
seeing here
it
was
was-
above the floor of
It
the.
was on
Yeah.
those pedestals?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
So these pedestals would have been underneath
we have it here, don't we?
and these, and then so that would move the arc up considerably. The arc has also been shortened. It was a bigger arc. Yes.
So, I mean, that's what it looked like. And it was 13 feet high. And there were steps leading up to it, and then the columns basically rested on the bottom panels. The ceiling itself is what, 18, 20 feet?
Yeah, 20 feet, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, it was designed when they expanded outward, and they raised the ceiling, they basically could accommodate people to this scale. Something of, which brings,
How was that picture recent?
this is a recent picture, this is before, yeah, we took this, we had this taken by, what's his name, Bissett,
Oh,
the
yeah.
fellow who did the mural. Yeah, so he came out and did all of that stuff.
Just before the arc was.
Yeah, yes, so such a good.
It was extraordinary, beautiful pictures.
So your hope is if you are
Oh.
able.
So this brings us.
Yeah. So the
Funny you should ask.
Yeah.
To our hope. So what our hope is, what our wish is to take this wall and push it out about 25 feet. Raise the ceiling. Recreate that space because we have almost all the parts that we need to do that. We have the pews, we have the bema and the reading table. Obviously, we have the ark and we have the means to bring the ark back to its full glory. It would not be difficult to recreate the stained glass window. The only pieces we don't have at this point are the chandeliers. And as I said earlier, before you got here, I'm bound to determine that
You are.
we'll get them. We'll at least get one of each. Because there were two types. We have the pews, so, and we know this is an architectural rendering, so we've had architects look at the feasibility of doing this, and it is in fact feasible. It can be done. It can be done without altering the lines of Ahavi Zedek as a synagogue, so from the outside, it will look very much like it fits in. But from the inside, it will have the curved sky blue ceiling. And of course, the stained glass windows. And then these windows have a very funny story behind them. The person who built the windows originally was somebody who worked in many religious settings. And thought nothing about putting in the windows the way he'd done in churches. And so when the Jewish congregation walked in and saw these windows, these pieces weren't there and they were crosses, right?
Oh,
And they went, this is not gonna work, this will never. And so they put these pieces in every window
right.
to break up the cross. But that's part of the history of the structure. So, and the wainscoting, as you see, Ray very lovingly and carefully recreated sections of the wainscoting there. And that will be certainly part of this vision as well as a wooden floor and completely redone, ceiling and redone lighting and all of that. With the purpose being to really allow people, us and future generations, to sit in a space that is as close to that space as we can get it. And it would be about 75 to 80% of the scale, because we can't get the full scale, but we can get a lot closer than we are today. And you won't have the issue of the ceiling and the cutoff and all that stuff.